literally watching your videos.
That's always good. Uh, Four controls we have seen. People controls we have already seen. What are the people related controls? Now we are going to see the organizational related controls. When you are going for the SIS training program, so this organizational related controls has been clubbed with some organizational related controls, and the physical security related controls are clubbed. They have clubbed these controls, or the organizational controls are clubbed with the people related controls. So we need not to be confused. In the organizational related controls, those policy would be there which would be enforced from the management side. The management will come up with a different policy. Like your one of the policies start from organization controls have near about 37 policies. The first policy of the organizational controls talks about policies of information security. So every organization should have a proper policy of the information security. A defined, a documented policy of the information security should be there. If I'm talking about the policies of information security, in the policies of information security, the information security policy statement would be there. Okay. In the statement, there would be a commitment from the management side what actually we are going to do in our organization or what we are committed to do. So we should uh, have a proper information security policy within the organization. I have shared the templates with you. In the templates, you can find in the clause number A control A5, you will find a policies of information security. In the same way, information security rules and responsibility. Now, proper roles and responsibilities should be defined within the organization. What is the role of IT team? What would be the role of admin team? What would be the role of your information security team? What would be the role of the HR team within the organization? So everything should be properly defined in the organization. So there should be a proper roles and responsibility. Now, next thing would be the segregation of the duties. In the segregation of the duties, what we need to do, we need to segregate the duties. Why the segregation of duties should be there? The segregation of duties should be there to avoid the conflict, because there are many conflicts within the organization. The IT team would say that, boss, this is not my job. My job is to provide the asset to the user. Apart from this, security related things is not my job. So there should be properly defined segregation of duties should be there. Why the segregation of duties should be there? To reduce the risk of fraud, error, or bypassing the information security controls. Segregation of duties and the responsibility aims to separate conflict duties between the different individuals in order to prevent individual for accepting potential conflict duties on their own. The organization should segregate the duty. Who would be initiation? Who would, if certain things should be there within the organization, who would be the initiating authority? Who would be the approving authority, or who would execute the change within the organization? In the same way, when I am doing the code review, code developing the something, so who is designing the code, who is implementing the code, and who is reviewing the code? The proper roles and responsibilities should be there within the organization. The next clause is the management responsibility. The management responsibility clause comes under the preventive control. It falls under the identify phase of the cyber security. So a guidelines from the management should be there. The management should demonstrate support of the information security policy. If management is committed to protect the privacy related information of the users, then the management show its intent also to providing the proper support to the personnel who is implementing the information security to the organization. It could be fund, it could be your employee related things. If something should be procured, the procurement related help should be there. No. Another control is your contact with authority. In the contact with the authority, we need to maintain contact. We need to maintain contact with relevant authorities. Suppose we need to establish a proper channel to whom we need to connect in case of your law enforcement, your regulatory requirement, your supervisory authority, how we need to connect, to whom we need to connect. So this should be proper. If the certain data breach would be there, then to whom I need to connect? Who is my supervisory authority? Who is the supervisory authority of the your country? So a proper channel should be there to be established within the organization. In the next clause, contact with the special interest group. Now, in 5.5, it was there contact with authority. Now in 5.6 is the contact with special interest group. Who would be your special interest group? It would be a group or forum to improve the knowledge and the best practice within the organization, to receive early warnings and alert, to gain access with specialist information security advice, to sometime to provide a liaison point between the dealing with information security incident. So the special interest group also we need to do. Now 5.7 talks about the threat intelligence. The threat intelligence is the same. We need to provide awareness of the organization threat environment, what are our threats are there, and appropriate mitigation we need to put. The first, this we have seen in the detail while having the risk management exercise, we have seen what are our threat landscape, what are the types of attacks are there, your operational related threat intelligence, your tactical threat intelligence, your strategic threat intelligence. Who are the threat landscape? This is the basically you need to identify your threat landscape. The organization needs, in the organizational controls, you need to identify your threat landscape. So who are the threats? So this would be done as a part of risk management exercise. When we are identifying the risk, so we need to also identify the threat related things. Now there is a main clause 5.8 says the information security in the project management. Now this is the major clause, because once you get an order of a customer, okay, now your company got an order of a customer, so we need to have a proper information security controls during the project management phase. So when you got an order, your sales department will win order for you. Now it order comes to your project management team. The project management team onboards the customers. They also onboard the partners or the suppliers. If there would be certain suppliers or partners would be there. So they do onboarding of the things. They do have access to all the contracts related to the customer. They do have the access to all the contracts related to the partners or vendors, and they also do have all the information related to the project, because the project management team is going to onboard a project. So we need to have a proper, the first thing is that we need to identify the project related risk throughout the life cycle of the project. What are the risks to the projects, and appropriately we need to have a proper controls to protect confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of the information, because there are certain information related to the customer also. There are certain contractual requirement also. So we need to have a proper project management cycle, project management phase. The project development approach, like when we are doing the waterfall life cycle model or agile life cycle model, in the both phase, we need to consider the things. We need to consider the information security risk in our project management life cycle. Now, next clause is your inventory of information and other associated assets. So this is the major thing. This also usually starts from your risk management exercise. When you are identifying the risk, first you need to identify your assets. So we need to have proper information related to our assets. What are assets are within the organization? Which types of assets we do have? What are the critical assets? If the assets would not be available, then how we are going to work? Who has the ownership of the assets? And what is the duty of the owners? If suppose I have given a laptop to you, organization have given a laptop to you, the ownership of the assets belongs to the IT team, but you are the custodian of the assets. Okay, so you need to have proper, you can say, you proper controls. Your safety and security of the assets comes under your hand. You need to safeguard the assets. Now, once the organization has given you the assets, then acceptable use of information and other associated assets. Till how, what would be your, you can say, acceptable use? What are the things are accepted when you are using the assets provided by the organization? You are not supposed to open any illegal websites. You are not supposed to open any illegal website. You are not supposed to do the data breach. You are not also do the data breach from the systems. You are not supposed to infect your devices with the viruses. So there are certain acceptable use policies are there. You are supposed to use your organization provided assets for your own purpose only, not for the personal purpose. For the official purpose, you need to do, you need to use the assets. So proper acceptable use of policy is there. Now another policy is the return of the assets. Now you can see the cycle, how the cycle start. First you need to employee given the assets from the organization, then acceptable use of policy make them understand. Now once you are separating from the organization, how you are going to return the assets, what would be the process of the returning of the assets? And the moment you are returning the assets, so there are certain access you have been provided, so those assets should be removed. These are the things comes under the these are the controls should be there when you are returning the assets. So next clause is say the classification of the information. In the classification of the information, whatever the information you do have within the organization should be classified. So normally there are four types of classifications of information uh, organizations are using. Like the first thing is your public related information. Your public information would be there. Your private information would be there. Categorization. We need to do the categorization. Private would be there. Your confidential information would be there. Confidential information would be there. And the restricted information would be there. The fourth category would be the restricted. So this should be classified. Each and every assets within the organization should be classified. Public information, all the information which are available publicly, which can be accessed by anyone, is your public related information. The information which can be shared internally among the employees are the private information. Confidential information, only some of the peoples in the organization the confidential when we are sharing any confidential information to anyone, then there should be a proper controls from the organization that the files which you are sharing should be encrypted. So this file should not be copied anywhere, or if you are trying to take the printout of those information, those printouts should not be there. So these kinds of controls we need to put in the same. Restricted information. Restricted information should be uh, not for anyone. These are the information which can be shared between top members of the organization. So those information are called as the restricted information. So all the information processing things within the organization should be categorized in public, private, confidential, and the restricted part. And accordingly, we need to put the proper controls. Now, once you have classified the information, accordingly, you need to label the information. You could do the physical labels on your hard disk and all. We can do the physical labeling on the header and footer. We can label the things. Watermarking we can do. Rubber stamp also we can do the rubber stamp that these are the confidential information. When we are taking the printout, we can have a proper stamp related to the classification. So labeling of information is also very much important within the organization. Now, next clause is related to information transfer. If we are transferring any information within the organization or external interested parties or external sources, the proper control should be there. The data which are in the rest or the data which are in the motion should be properly controlled. Your physical transfer also, your electronic transfer should also be properly controlled. Like who is going to share the data, what are the data should be shared, who is the responsible for that. Authorized person should be there. Only authorized persons should transfer the data. So these controls also should be there. Now, next control is your access control. This is the biggest control, you can say, most important control in as a part of your information security. The access control is there. The access should be provided to the user on need to know basis. What needs to know to user, accordingly we will provide the access to your, this is not only access to your physical assets, your physical security. In the physical security we'll see the what are the physical security controls are there, but here we are talking about all the logical access we are going to provide anywhere. The access to your laptop and desktop, there should be a proper procedure. Access to your server, access to your database, and all. So where we are providing any access, all the logical access should be properly controlled. So there are two types of access would be there. One is your normal access, which you are going to provide to the user, the normal access. Another access would be your admin access, or you can say privilege access. Better word would be the privilege access. The normal access is given to the each employee of the organization, and the privilege access is going a privilege access we are going to give on requirement basis. When there would be requirement, then it should be approved by your managers or the departmental head, then only you are privilege access would be provided to you. So a proper access control mechanism should be there. When employee would join, what kinds of access would be provided to the employee, how, till what extent we are going to provide you the access. Suppose you are using the file server of the organization, then what is would be the process. The access controls is the process of authorization would be there. A proper authorization mechanism should be implemented within the organization. When I'm talking about the authorization mechanism, there should be a mechanism, there should be a logical control to authorize the user, and need to know basis we need to provide the access to. The first thing is that we what kinds of access should be provided to the user. Then when we are providing the access, what is the authorization mechanism, how we are going to provide, how we are going to authorize the you can say identify the user ki only these persons had been given access to the information facility of the organization. Now next thing would be your identity management. In the identity management, we need to identify the identity of the user. For identity management, for identity assigned to a person, a specific identity is also linked to the single person to able to hold the person accountable for the action performed with the specific identity. If something has been done wrong from your account, so I am going to hold your hand. I'm going to catch you only because the authorization authentication mechanism is there within the organization. By using the authentication mechanism, I can able to identify you because we have shared the user ID and password. Because for the when you are logging to a system, uh, you know your user and password, and the for another step you are going to have a OTP in your mobile phones, or you can say proper secure authentication would be there. So you are the person. So proper identity management should be there within the organization, whether we can do the manually or we can have a proper identity and access management tools within the organization. In the same way, authentication information, allocation of authentication information, how the personal password and personal identifier number should be there. We need to establish a proper procedure to verify the identity of the users. The authentication information include temporary authentication information is transmitted to user in a secure manner over the authenticated and protected channel. Suppose one person has joined within your organization, then you have provided user ID and password. The first user ID, when the user is going to logging in the system for the first time, there should be a temporary authentication method, a temporary password you are going to send to the user. This should be transmitted in the secure manner over the email, or the use of unprotected clear text electronic mail message for this purpose should be avoided. Suppose you are sending the information in one mail, we can send the user ID related information. In another mail, we can send another mail would be also encrypted one. We can send the password related information of the user. So this controls we need to put, and users should acknowledge the receipt or authenticate information. When you receive the things, you should acknowledge it. Either acknowledgement should be manual or acknowledgement should be automated also. Your password management system, there should be a proper password management system within the organization to manage the password. The password, there should be a proper you can say we need to implement a proper password policy in the organization. We should enforce the user. We should not ask user. We should enforce the user to have a good password, or you can say strong password. We cannot request them to have the proper. We should enforce technically. You need to use the technology, and we need to ensure the user to have a proper strong password within the organization. We should force the user to change their password on the first login. We should enforce the password change in necessary. Suppose if there would be a security incident, In that case, we need to enforce the user to change their password. We need to uh, prevent user to reuse their previous passwords. We need to prevent user to use commonly passwords. The password should not be displayed on the screen when being entered. There should be cross marking should be there. Store and transmit password in the protected form. All the passwords should be stored and you can say transmit in a protected form. So this should be there within the organ. Proper password policy should be there within the organization. Now, next control is your access right. Access right of the information and other associated assets should be provisioned, reviewed, modified, and removed according with the organization topic specific policy and the rule of access control. If you have given certain access rights to the users based on the requirement, all those access rights should be reviewed on the timely manner, and once the period is over, then access rights should be revoked. So this control said when you are going to give any temporary access right or the limited time access right, then after the completing of the period, you need to revoke the access right, or we need to review also the user is doing any wrong things by having certain level of access within the information processing facility, then we need to terminate the access rights. Now the next clause is information security in the supplier relationship. This is a very important clause. We need to maintain proper because our supplier, we are giving certain information to our suppliers. If we are giving certain information to our suppliers, then in that case, all the information which we are giving to the supplier should be properly protected by the supplier. All the requirement related to infosec, right, like your right to audit to the supplier, the proper information processing facility should be there with the supplier. The supplier should be properly controlled, should be adequately adopted. All the information security control should be properly adopted by the suppliers. The supplier should also identify their risk landscape, what are the risks are there to the suppliers. So these are the controls should be implemented in the supplier relationship. Now we need to address these controls while we are doing agreement with the suppliers. All the things which you are talking should be written in the contractual. What are kinds of information we are giving to them, to the supplier? What are the legal, statutory, and regulatory or the contractual requirements related to the suppliers are there? What are the obligations to the contractual part? Your right to audit also we can include. How the supplier is going to process the data processing facility. The right to audit also we need to implement. The same controls what we are implementing the organization, we need to also ensure same controls should be implemented by the suppliers. In the same way, managing the information security in the ICT supply chain. In the supply chain also, we need to have proper controls, that proper security control should be also there. Like your cloud service providing, when we are taking any services from the cloud, examples of ICT supply chains. If you are taking any cloud service, then we need to also ensure proper security measures are there with the cloud service provider or not. If we are taking a hosting service, then we need to proper do the risk assessment of the hosting service providers, whether the information which are flowing, you can say which are sharing to them is properly maintained or not. We need to also review our services with the services which are provided by the cloud service provider or the services which are being provided by the our channels partners and all the information security clauses should be properly implemented. So these are the clauses related to the supplier relationships as a part of management related controls.